Hello guys, welcome to the channel of TCP/IP. Today we are going to discuss about the classful IP addressing. So now in this classful IP addressing, before we have previous video on the IP address. In that we have discussed about what is IP address, why IP address is required, what is the address space of the IP address, and then what are the different notations of IP address, and details the types of the IP address. So after that discussing that video, we have to discuss about the concept of what classful address. As we all know that guys, the space of IP address 4 is 2 to the power 32, which is very large space. So it is better to divide that space into number of classes so that classes can be classes or IP address can be better used and manageable. Because if you go with the 2 to the power 32 directly, so this is going to be a very large number and is very difficult to manage and handle. So it is better to divide these IP addresses into the number of classes so that the portion of classes can be easily maintained. Okay. Then the class of IP address is used to determine the bit used for network ID and the host ID and the number of total networks and hosts possible in that particular class. As we know that because in a computer network there are a number of devices are connected. Out of the devices, one can be identified a host, one can be having the network, because directly if we have only single entire network in the world, it is not possible. So that entire network is going to be divided into different sub networks, and then in that networks what we have supposed to have, let's say, number of computers. Okay, so for that purpose also, so there's supposed to be a measure that how it is going to be identified. So with the help of classes, it is going to be identified. Then a classful address is a network addressing architecture used in internet from 1981 until the invention of CIDR notation, that is up to 1993. So the this method divide the IP address space for Internet Protocol version 4 into 5 classes based on the leading 4 address bits. Okay, so these are the purpose of the classful addressing. So we are dividing that classes. We are dividing that IP address into number of available classes with us. Let's start. Okay. Now the second slide will be showing about what are the classes are available in this particular IP version 4. So here, if you go with the details of the classes, we have 5 classes with us: class A, class B, class C, class D. And these are the classes are divided because only for the betterment and management purpose. And out of these 5 classes, what we have, first 3 classes, class A, B, C, are used for unicast purpose, and class D is used for the multicast purpose, and the class E is used for experimental or future purpose. So if you go with the 2 to the power 32 and address space, okay, so this 2 to the power 30 space address space is also divided into number of classes. So how it is going to be divided? In this diagram, we can see these are the percentage are shown in class A, B, C, D, E. How many addresses can be belongs to that particular class? And if you go with the table, so class A is concerned 2 to the power 31. So more than 2 billion values are going to be available with the class A, and which is of what share of 50% of total. If you go with the class B, it is about 2 to the power 30, is going to be of more than 1 billion value are there. That is 25% of share with the total of 1. Okay, so this part is what A, and this is what for B. And then if you go with the C, D, E, what we have to the power 29, which is about 12.5% is it belongs to the class C. And if you go the D and E, which is of each equally 6.25, 6.25, which is what here we can say D, and here we can say E. So here, if you go, if someone can ask, let's say, question that how many classes of the IP address version 4, so you definitely said there are 5 classes, out of which 3 classes are going to be used for common users, and last 2 classes are going to be reserved for a specific purpose like multicast and experimental purpose. So these are the classes available. Now let's check what is the range of IP address, guys. So this is very important, that in order to identify, in order to understand, in order to, let's say, check whether this IP address belongs to which IP address class. So here the range is going to be available. So range is what? The class A, whatever the address space is, what to the power 32 is what more than 4 billion value. And here if you talked about the 1 octet, 2 octet, 3 octet, 4 octet, so here maximum capacity in the 1 octet will be 2 to the power, let's say, 8. तो दिस 2 to the power 8 अगर यहाँ पे अवेलेबल है तो इस बेसिस पे हमारे पास कितनी सारी रेंज अगर होंगी, तो एक क्लास की रेंज है 0 to 127। इफ वी हैव नंबर इन डेसिमल, तो 0 to 127 तक अगर नंबर है तो दैट विल बी बिलोंग्स टू द क्लास ए। इफ यू हैव 128 to 191 is belongs to class B। 192 to 223 belongs to class C। D क्लास की रेंज है 224 to 239 एंड क्लास E की रेंज है 240 to 255। This is what the range of the IP address classes. If you go with the identification purpose, so we look how to identify if there is a binary number. So class A, if the leading 0 is there, okay, and the rest of the 7 bit, whatever the bits are there, so that will be belongs to the class A. If in terms of the class B, if there are leading 1 and then followed by 0, and here remaining, let's say 6 bits are there, whatever that bit will be there, that belongs to the class B. If you go with the class C, the 110 leading 3 bits are there, and then remaining with what the 5 bits are there. Okay, then class D 1110 will be class D, and class E if you have 111 4 times. So how to check? Let's start with this diagram. Start, if you check which address is belongs to which class. So if you go with the checking this IP addresses, to reach over here, first check whether the bit is 0. If it is bit 0, then it belongs to class A. Then if check, go further, if it is 0, yes or no, let's say no. Then proceed further whether it is 1. So yes, 1, it is 1. Now go for the next level. Then again check whether it is bit is 0 or 1. So let's say it found 0, so it belongs to class A, because 1 and 0 is belongs to class B. Then go further 1 1, whether again check whether it is 1. So 1 1 and then 0, it will be class C. And then again 1 1 1 3 1 and then 0, let's say it is class D, and next is what, all 4 are 1, so this will be class E. So in this way we can identify any address, that address belongs to which particular class on the basis of this decision capacity scenario. Now let's take an example. Here we have 2 to 4 examples are available of classes IP address given are there. Now here, if you go with this particular first address, which is called binary notation, and just identify what this address is belongs to which class. So we have to check in this direction, guys. First 0 is there. So first is 0 is there. First zeros belong, let's say, so it belongs to the class A. Now we have to check the second one. There are two consecutive ones are there, leading ones are there. So we can say this belongs to class C. Then we have 101, it is there, so it belongs to class B, because we know only 10 is there, the class B belongs, this address belongs to class B. Then we have to check the fourth one, and this all consecutive 4s are 1, so it belongs to class E. So this is what the binary notation. Let's check the decimal notation. If we given some addresses that need and ask, let's say, identify which it belongs to which class, so we can easily identify on the basis of first octet what we are, guys. Okay, so here first octet is what, 2 to 7, so it's between the 2 to 4 to 239, and we have to check the range of these classes. So this class belongs to class D's range, guys. Then check for the second IP address, first octet. Then 193 belongs to, let in between 192 to 223, it means what, it belongs to class C, guys. Then again 4, that is what, 14 is there, so 14 belong in between the 0 to 127, it means what, it belongs to A. And if you go with the last IP address, that is 252.5.15.111, so out of that we are taking the first octet 252. In the range of 252 is between what, 240 to 255, it means what, it belongs to class E. So in this way we can easily identify the class, the IP address which belongs to which class, okay, on the basis of the binary notation and the decimal notation also. But here we need to keep a track of what is the leading 0, what the leading value of that. And first octet is what, decision octet we can say. Then there is a second concept available with the classful IP addressing, that is what, the net ID and host ID, because we know that, guys, in the network there are so many networks are available, and there are so many computers are attached. So how to identify which portion belongs to network and which portion belongs to host ID? Okay, so for there supposed to be a kind of what is the reservation supposed to be there. So which octet supposed to be belongs to which net ID or host ID. On the basis of that, what we have available, we have a chart, and every classes having their different size of the net ID and host ID. because we know net ID determines the network address while the host ID determines the host connected to that network. Okay, and this will be again variable length because class A, class B, class C, we have different classes. On the basis of that, it is going to be available. So if you talked about the class A, as far as the class A is concerned, the first ID, that first byte is what net ID. It means what? First one byte, one byte is there, or 8-bit is there, is belongs to what? The first net ID. The rest of the things are what? Host ID. So to the power 24 will be belongs to the host. So these many number of hosts can be connected with the available net IDs. Here, if you go with this minus with the first leading 0 and rest of the 7, so to the power 7 number of blocks will be available with the class is concerned. If you go with the class B, so first 2 byte will be belongs to net ID and last 2 byte will belongs to the host ID. And as far as the class C is concerned, first 3 bytes belongs to the net ID and only one octet is belong to the host ID. And class D and class E, here there is only one block, and that block is not divided into net ID or host ID. It is going to be for multicast addressing. It is going to be a research or military purpose use is going to be there. Okay, so this is what the concept of net ID and host ID. Here, because we have to calculate the number of blocks available and what number of blocks will comprise of how many number of addresses, that need to be calculated on the basis of this particular net ID and host ID portion. Okay, so let's see guys, what is the block size of every class is available with us. So if you talked about the first class, that is class E, as we all know that only one byte is net ID. Earlier we have discussed for very first जो हमारे पास जो ऑक्टेट है उसको ही हम नेट आईडी के लिए यूज होता है, अदरवाइज जो बाकी के जो ऑक्टेट है 3 वो कहीं ना कहीं होस्ट को आइडेंटिफाई होते हैं. नाउ and we also know there is a leading 0 is there, and if we minus this leading 0 in the first bit position, and there will be only 7 bit available to change the number of block in the class. So we can say 2 to the power 20 2 to the power 7, which is of 128 blocks that can assign to 128 organization. Okay, which is a very less number, but it is very good number. And if you go with, let's say, remaining 3 bytes, guys, remaining 3 bytes, that is 24 bits. So 2 to the power 24, which is of what, more than 1 billion value is available. So we got 128. What we got 128 blocks, and each block comprise of this number of addresses. This number of addresses, that more than 1 billion. Okay, so if we calculate this one, so we got this value of 50% share of the class A, which is what, more than 2 billions value. Okay, if you go with the diagram, and too many addresses are going to be west over here because we have only 128 block, and one block what we are having 2 to the power 24 addresses, but there is no any such organization in the world, guys, that required this number of IP addresses for the host purpose. So maximum IP address is going to be west. If you go with the tabular form, so class A net ID 000 4 times 0 20.255.255.255. This will be the first net ID block 1. This will be a block 2, because if you started with a 0, then 1.000 to the 1.255.255.255, then up to 127. Okay, so 0 to 127, this is 128 blocks are available, and each block what we have, these number of IP addresses are available. So there is a slight mistake over here, guys. Okay, so these number of IP addresses are available in each block. If you multiply this value with the number of blocks, we got more than 2 billions value available with us with the class A is concerned. Okay, but here maximum IP address are going to be west, because that number of network size is never going to be available with a single organization. So what to do? We have second class of IP address, that is what the class B. So here what is there? So we know that the 2 bytes and 2 byte ratio is there. So 2 bytes belongs to network ID and 2 bytes belongs towards the host ID. Out of that, what we know also, 10 is fixed. 10 is fixed to identify the class. So 10 is fixed. If you minus with 16 minus 2, it will be 14. 16 minus 2, it will be 14. So 2 to the power 14, 16384, 16,384 number of blocks will be there. Number of blocks will be there, and in each block, whatever there, the 2 to the power 16. So 65,536 number of IP addresses in one block. So if you multiply this value with the number of blocks, so 16384 into 65,536, the value will be more than 1 billion value over here, guys. Okay, so this will be 24% of share out of 100. Here also there is no any organization which have comprised of 65 1536 number of computers in single organization. It is very huge number also. Okay, so maximum IP address are going to be based over here also. Here we can say tabular form block one. Block one started from 120.0.0.0 to 120.0.2555. So here the variation will be 128, then 120.0, then 120.1. Okay, likewise 128.255. So there are these many number of what we can say the blocks are available. So here टोटल ब्लॉक्स और 16,384 ब्लॉक हमारे पास यहाँ पे अवेलेबल आएंगे और यहाँ पे एक ब्लॉक में कहीं ना कहीं 65,536 IP addresses हमारे पास अवेलेबल रहेंगे. So this is what the class B is concerned. Let's talk about the class C is concerned. So here what we know that in the class C, as well as the class C is concerned, only one octet is available with the host ID, and rest of the three octet of what belongs to the net ID. So if you go with the standard definition, so here out of first three octet, okay, out of first three bytes, three octet, there are fixed bits are available 110. This is what the identification of class C. So if you minus the 3 bits from the 25 or 24, it will be 21. So 2 to the power 21, 2 to the power 21, it means what? 2097153 blocks. These many number of blocks, and each block, what number of hosts will be getting? 2 to the power 8. So it is what? 256. Now this is what the very sophisticated value that is, because many of organization can have 2 to the power 8. That is what 256 computers. Okay. So here different organization can be possible, like this is 2 to the power 21 organization, that is 2097152 organization can be possible, and each organization can have 256 hosts in that one. Okay, so this class C is maximally used by many of organization. Now here if you talked about the total number of addresses in class C, so formula is that number of blocks in the class C into number of hosts in each block of the class C. So here this value will be this value will be this. So nearly it is what the 12.5% of the total address space. Okay. However, so many organizations were so small to be satisfied with the class C. Figure shows डिटेल फिगर में है. यहाँ पर ब्लॉक 1 है. यहाँ पर बहुत सारे ब्लॉक अवेलेबल है गाइस. बहुत सारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इसको यूज कर सकते हैं. ब्लॉक 1 से हम चालू करते हैं 192.0.0.0 टू 192.0.0.255. यहाँ से स्टार्ट किया हमने तो 192.0 ये ऑक्टेट में चेंजेस करेंगे बिकॉज 3 हमारे पास अवेलेबल है. ये चेंजेस करते करते जाएंगे. सुबह 192.0.1 से लेकर 192.0.2 3 4 अप टू 25555 ये ऑक्टेट भर जाएंगे. उसके बाद इसको स्टार्ट करेंगे 192.1 से लेकर 1 तक, तो ये कहीं ना कहीं इस रेंज में पहुंच जाएंगे. तो यहाँ पर हमें इस रेंज से पहुंचने के बाद तो up to 255 or rest of the things will be 255 255 25. This is going to be there. Okay, so more about the numerical we are going to discuss in the next lecture, guys. So here what we have discussed about the net ID and host ID, how many number of host IDs and net IDs are available. So here we have talked about the 3 classes. Now let's talk about the last class, that is class D and E class. Here there is only one block available. In a class D and class E, and class D is used for the multicast purpose, and class E is used for the future like a research military purpose. Okay, each address in this class are used to define one group of the host on the internet. So this address is not going to be assigned to any particular computer directly. When a group is assigned as an address in the class, every host that is a number of groups will have the multicast and research purpose as we discussed earlier. So out of this 3 available with us, guys, so what we have discussed today in the class, we have discussed about the classful addressing. In the classful addressing, there are 5 classes of the IP address, that is class A, B, C, D, E. Out of these 5, only 3 classes are going to be used. Class A, B, C for the users. Otherwise, class D is going to be used for what the reserved purpose. Here, okay. We have also discussed about what number of net IDs and what number of host IDs are available, because in order to identify which is the net ID and what is the identification of network and what is the identification of host, so that's supposed to be segregated on the basis of some value. So here there are available mechanisms what net ID, host ID. So as far as the class A is concerned, first 1 byte is going to be assigned to the network and rest of the 3 is going to be for the host. But here there is no any such organization in the world that is 2 to the power 24 number of addresses going to be connected in single network. So too many of addresses are going to be wasted over here. And subsequently class B having 2 octet for the host ID, 2 octet for the net ID. In class C, 3 ID for the net, 3 octet for the net ID, and the last octet is for the host ID. So this is what all about the classful addressing, guys. In next lecture, we are going to discuss about the subnetting portion. Thank you. I hope that, guys, this video is going to be like to you. Thank you.